stuck here. The cops won't bother me. That's right, guys. I am going to complain about the NC700. So as you guys know, I just picked up the NC700 because I sold my V-Strom. And I keep comparing the NC700 to my V-Strom. It's a great bike. It is. But there is an issue with it. It's this motor. This motor is very unlike a regular motorcycle. Motorcycles should be fun, but this one is really not fun. The only way to have fun in this bike is to ride it off-road or do some cross-country trips, because the bike itself is not made to be fun. So why do I like it? The reason I like it is because it is boring. It doesn't keep me getting speeding tickets. And if you know me, I keep getting speeding tickets here in the DC metro area because there's so many cops everywhere. Slow bike. When you're going 70 miles an hour, it feels like you're going 40. Same thing with the Ninja 250. But the problem with the Ninja 250 is that it looks like a sport bike. So cops are attracted to that bike. This one flies under the radar. It is such a slow moving bike, so quiet that cops don't really care too much about this style because it's like an old fogey bike. Of course, this bike is a 700cc engine, but it feels like a 300cc engine. That is a weird horsepower difference from the V-Strom. The V-Strom had 20 more horsepower and the displacement was slightly smaller. My chain is all kinked up. This is why you have to maintain bikes. The previous owner kind of like is a little bit of a shady guy, and he lubed the hell out of it. This should have been my clue as to how he maintained it, because the swing arm is full of grease. Not only grease, it's kind of shot up onto the plastic here. At the time, I didn't really care. I really wanted this bike, and I got a very good deal. And I bought it for $2,000, but most likely you're not going to get it for $2,000. The only reason I got it for $2,000 is because there was a engine light on this bike, which I have fixed. It's such a slow bike, but for commuting, which is what this bike was designed for, it feels absolutely in its element. It's the type of bike that you're not going to get in trouble. And look at this. Look how slim this thing is. It's so narrow. It feels like you can go in between cars with these. So this thing might be perfect at home in California. And one of the big benefits, of course, is this thing. You put your key here and you twist it to the right, and look at this. Look at that. I got my Frappuccino. I got $20 here. By the way, it only fills up the gas tank now with like $5. That's how small of a gas tank that is. That's a con. The battery is right here. And at first I thought, oh man, that's kind of like a terrible place for a battery. But it's ingenious. You take this screw and that screw, this pops out, and then you have access to the battery. Also with this rubber band, you have your toolkit here. So very handy. And of course there's a little bit more space up here. You can put a full-size helmet on here. That's how deep this is. And it goes on for a little bit more. It's fantastic to have, because one of the things I hate are tank bags. And this thing, that's essentially your tank bag. To open up your gas, you just turn it to the left. And look at this. Look at that. How awesome is this? This is the tank. Now, this is also a pro and a con. First, I hate that they use these fillers that you have to like remove and just put somewhere. But of course, this one's easy because you can put it right next to it. But also, it's only 3.5 gallons. So this thing is just so small that you're always going to be filling it up. But this NC gets 70 miles to the gallon. 65 really, but you can get even higher. I've heard of guys getting like 90 miles to the gallon on this thing because it's such a fuel efficient bike. And it's really nice that you can access the gas tank here, and it's easy to kind of like live with. but it is a little hard to fill up. Just having this space here, I think it's much easier to fill it up here. Now, another con is that it uses 17-inch wheels in the front and in the rear. So this thing is good for the street, good for commuting, but not good for off-road. But the bike looks like an off-road bike. It looks like a big trailer or a dual sport. This thing would actually make a killer ADV bike if Honda decided to make it a little bit better for ADV. And by better, just give it a little bit more suspension and a front tire that's like a 19-inch front wheel like the V-Strom would make a world of a difference. And I think it would start selling a lot better, especially if they put like a wired wheels, because it seems like all the hipsters on ADV rider want wired wheels. This one's got the stock exhaust and it is pretty heavy. I like that it's like very open here and you can see even your brake pads to see if they're worn. It's a very easy bike to maintain. Look at this, you have your horn right there, your filler cap here. This is probably one of the better bikes to maintain, so if you're learning how to do mechanical stuff, you're really not going to work too much on this bike, but if you do need to work on it, let's say the fork seals break, you undo one bolt here, one bolt there, and you just slide this whole thing out. That's how easy it is to live with this thing. The fork seals are just right there, just incredible. I like that they have one bulb, so a lot of times makers started doing the dual headlight, but now they're doing like the single, and it makes sense. You don't really need to. It's a lot simpler, less things to go wrong, less bulbs to replace. Sitting on this thing is incredibly comfortable. The handlebars move in such a good ergonomical way that you don't really have any issues with it, at least I don't. Also, it's got very large buttons that make it very comfortable. Everything is very high quality. It's what I would expect from a Honda. And this bike was a little neglected, and you can tell it was neglected because when you look at the dash, this bike just sat outside, and there's kind of like a weird knob to this part. If it was stored indoors, like this would never happen. Let's go ahead and turn this on. One thing I don't like is that it automatically turns on the headlights if you ever break down. I don't like that. So very simple gauge, and there is a way to adjust the seat 3. Okay, you can adjust the dim. Let's start this thing up, and it starts right up. So 3, 1, and that's pretty much it. Very simple gauge. You have your dummy lights here. It's in neutral. You have 2 buttons, one here, one here. Very small cluster, and it looks very contemporary. It does not sound good. These inline 2s, that's an inline 2 too, do not sound good. These are not the bikes that you would get for impressing your friends. You're not going to impress your friends with the sound of a inline 2 at all. Maybe if you have like a larger inline 2, but every inline 2 I've ever ridden just sounds like complete garbage, and the NC does sound like that. But it's quiet, and that's a good thing because you can get away with a lot more stuff when you have a quiet bike. So a lot of guys that make their exhausts really loud, you just kind of stand out. And I think I stopped doing that just because cops are hearing things and they are more inclined to give you like speeding tickets. So my life is not to get caught, just ride in the countryside. And this bike is a pretty good one. If you keep a bike for a while, the NC feels like a bike that you can just rack up tons of miles. And get this, I have seen this bike, a 2012, the early gen NC700, with over 250,000 miles. It's incredible. And the reason is that the engine on this thing is so low revving that it lasts a whole lot longer. When you compare the rev ceiling of this bike to that bike that revs to 17,000? No, 14,000, 12,000. This thing revs to 6,000, and that's the reason why the NC is a bike that's a little understated. It's a bike for, I think, a guy that wants to ride to work. A lot of times you have these ridiculous riders on BMW GSs with the side cases and the matching outfits, and they look ridiculous, and they're just going to work. But this thing is a much better commuter than all of those bikes. And a lot of times, that's all guys want. They want a commuter so they can use the HOV lane. This thing is perfect for that. You're getting 70 miles to the gallon. You have a low weight. It actually weighs almost the same as the V-Strom, but it feels like it's much lower because the weight on this is lower. Gas tank is like low. The engine is almost like straight going that way, I think 62 degrees. So the weight of this bike feels much lower than what it actually is on paper. This is probably the only bike that I know of that sounds bad on paper, but is much more brilliant in the street. So this thing could be gotten for a bargain because a lot of the biker boys don't get this, and this makes a much better bike because the stats do not do well for it. It's got low horsepower, high weight, but it's deceiving because the weight is just so much lower than you would expect. Alright, squids, thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye.